The tires hummed against the highway as we cut through the last stretch of early morning fog. It was just past 5:30, the sky still the kind of gray that tricks you into thinking it might never brighten. I hadn't slept. Lana had, at least. She'd passed out in the back seat hours ago, bundled in a fleece blanket, her legs pulled up under her, hugging the stuffed otter she'd named Marshmallow. She'd won it 2 nights ago in one of those rigged claw machines, after begging for just $1 more and shocking the both of us when she actually pulled it off. It had been a good trip. That's what I kept telling myself. Canoes, grilled corn on the fire, ghost stories, Lana giggling as we roasted marshmallows, our little traditions. But under it all, something hadn't felt right. Not just the sudden drop-off in messages from Emily, though that had kicked the first crack in the wall. It was more than that. The silence didn't just feel like absence. It felt like distance. Calculated distance. Intentional. We'd planned this week carefully. Emily was supposed to stay behind for work. Brady had football practice, so he stayed with Emily's sister. I'd take Lana and give her a summer memory she'd carry forever. And maybe, selfishly, I thought it would give Emily and me a breather. Things had felt strained for months. Late nights, vague explanations, half-hearted affection. We'd had slumps before, of course. But this was different. It wasn't cold. It was hollow. Still, I didn't expect, whatever this was. I hadn't told Emily we were coming home a day early. I told myself it'd be a nice surprise. The truth? The truth was I needed to see her. To see her face, to hear her voice, to get confirmation that the version of her I had in my head was still real. The sun was starting to rise when we finally turned into our neighborhood, painting the houses with a soft gold that made everything look too perfect. I remember slowing down when I saw our driveway. The silver sedan parked there stood out like a billboard. Not a neighbor's. Not a rental. Not anything I recognized. I sat in the car for a moment, hands tight on the wheel, staring at it. Then I heard Lana stir in the back seat. "Are we home?" she mumbled, still half asleep, her voice small and groggy. "Yeah, we are," I said, swallowing the tightness in my throat. "Hey, why don't you go in through the side door? I think there's still some muffins in the kitchen from the batch Aunt Rachel dropped off. I'll get the bags." She blinked at me. "Aren't we gonna say hi to Mom?" "Let's surprise her," I said, forcing a smile. "I'll be in a second." She nodded and climbed out with Marshmallow tucked under her arm, still too tired to notice the strangeness I couldn't shake. I walked up to the front door. I hadn't even locked it when we left. It felt safe back then. I opened it slowly, quietly, still not really sure what I was walking into. That's when I heard it. Soft laughter, a man's voice. The clink of glass on glass. The murmur of the TV, low but unmistakable. I stepped into the living room, and everything inside me dropped out. Emily was on the couch, her legs curled up under her, barefoot, wearing what was clearly a man's shirt, blue, slightly wrinkled, buttoned only halfway up. Her hair was a little messy, like someone had run their fingers through it. She was holding a glass of wine. Not one of our normal glasses, one of the expensive crystal ones we kept in the cabinet for guests. The kind she always told the kids not to touch. Beside her, on the far end of the couch, was a man I'd never seen in my life. He was dressed casually, dark jeans, plain black tee, and he held a wine glass in his hand too. His body was angled toward her, one leg crossed over the other, looking far too at home. They hadn't heard me come in. I stood there, in the doorway, unsure what part of this scene I was supposed to process first. The glasses? The shirt? The ease of it all? Emily was the first to notice. Her eyes caught mine mid-laugh, and everything in her face froze. The color drained out of her expression like someone had pulled the plug. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. The man turned to look at me, confused. No recognition, no guilt, just confusion, like I was a guest who'd walked into the wrong house. My chest was tight, my mouth dry. I didn't speak. I didn't yell or demand answers. I couldn't. I just stood there, feeling like I'd stepped into someone else's life. The silence in that room was louder than any scream I could have let out. Then I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. Lana. She'd come in through the back like I told her. She was standing near the kitchen doorway, still holding her stuffed otter, staring at the living room like she wasn't sure if what she was seeing was real. Our eyes met. And just like that, it all shattered. I turned around and walked out the front door. I didn't look back. I didn't have to. Because I knew she'd seen it. And I knew nothing was ever going to be the same again. The car was still warm when I slid back into the driver's seat. I didn't turn the engine on. Just sat there, the door cracked open enough to let in the morning air, which somehow felt heavier now. I could hear birds chirping like it was any other day. Like the ground hadn't just shifted beneath me. Lana was next door, safe. I'd walked her over to the Harpers with a half smile and a made-up excuse about needing to talk to her mom alone for a minute. Mrs. Harper was already on her porch drinking coffee. I knew she'd keep Lana distracted. She always did. But the way Lana looked up at me before she stepped inside, it was the kind of look no kid should ever have to give. Not worried. Not confused. Just quite like she was trying to protect me, when it should have been the other way around. I sat there in the car for what must have been 40 minutes, hands on the steering wheel, eyes fixed straight ahead like I was waiting for the road to tell me where to go. I didn't feel rage. I expected rage. I thought maybe I'd want to storm back inside and yell, break something, demand answers. But that feeling never came. What I felt was this eerie stillness. Like someone had pressed pause on my whole life. Eventually, the front door creaked open. Emily stepped out, barefoot, still wearing that guy's shirt, holding her phone in one hand. She spotted me in the car and froze for a second. Then, like nothing had happened, she walked toward me. No panic. No shame. Just calm, measured steps. She knocked on the driver's side window like we were strangers, like this was some polite interruption to her morning. I rolled it down halfway. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice flat. Not pleading. Not apologetic. Just bland. I nodded toward the sidewalk. "Out here's fine." She sighed like she was tired. Like I'd somehow inconvenienced her. "I know that looked bad," she started. I didn't answer. "He's just a friend," she said, more slowly this time. "His name is Ryan. We were catching up. That's all." I looked at her and for a second, I saw a flicker of discomfort. Maybe it was the way I didn't blink. Or the way I didn't ask any of the obvious questions. "You were in his shirt," I said quietly. "With wine glasses at 6 in the morning." She shifted her weight. "It wasn't like that." "Okay." Her brows drew in. "Okay." "Yeah," I said, still staring ahead. "I just wanted to see how far you'd take it." She looked like she wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. Instead, she folded her arms and took a step back. "He's leaving," she said after a pause. "You don't have to worry." That word made me want to laugh. I wasn't worried. Worry was for when you think something might be wrong. I already knew. I didn't say anything. She waited a few more seconds, then turned and walked back toward the house. As she opened the door, I caught one last glimpse of her silhouette in the hallway mirror, blurry and distant, like she was part of a memory I hadn't meant to remember. That night, I didn't sleep inside. I told Lana she could sleep over at the Harpers. Mrs. Harper offered without me even asking. I think she could tell something had happened. I think everyone on our street probably could by then. Word gets around fast in a quiet neighborhood. I stayed in the car. Not because I didn't have anywhere else to go, but because I needed to know if Emily would come out and look for me. Even once. Even to fake concern. She didn't. The house stayed dark. No texts. No footsteps on the gravel. Nothing. I sat there, slouched down in the seat with my jacket balled up behind my head, staring at the stars through the sunroof, wondering how long this had been going on. Wondering if the guy had really just been a friend, or if he was one of many. Wondering if the woman I married was still in there somewhere, buried under whatever version of herself she'd become. The silence answered for me. I thought about our wedding night. About the tiny apartment we started in, about the first time she called me from the pharmacy crying because she thought she was pregnant, and we were both broke, and I told her we'd figure it out, no matter what. I thought about her laugh when Brady was born, the way she held his hand like it was the most precious thing in the world. I thought about Lana's first fever, how we took turns staying up with her all night, playing dumb YouTube songs just to keep her smiling. Then I thought about that couch. About the shirt. About the wine. And I knew, without needing to be told, that something had cracked long before today. We just hadn't seen it. Or maybe I had. And I'd just chosen to look away. Brady got home the next day. He'd been in Richmond for a summer internship. Nothing major, just a 2-week program with a non-profit through his high school. He came through the door with a duffel bag slung over one shoulder, earbuds in, already talking before he even looked up. Hated. The train was late again, and I swear if I hear one more person say, "We apologize for the inconvenience," I'm gonna. He stopped cold when he saw me standing in the foyer. His face shifted. Not to fear or confusion, but something more subtle. Like recognition. Like he knew before I said a word that something had changed. "Where's Mom?" he asked. "Upstairs." He dropped his bag and stared at me for a second, his eyes scanning my face like he was trying to read between the lines. "You okay?" That question. It knocked something loose in my chest. I hadn't heard it from anyone since I walked into that living room. Not even from Emily. "I'm fine," I said too quickly. He didn't buy it. Later that afternoon, I found him in the garage, standing next to the old punching bag we kept meaning to get rid of. He wasn't hitting it. Just resting his head against it, arms slack at his sides. When I stepped in, he didn't turn around. "I saw her phone one night," he said. Voice low, like he was confessing something he wasn't sure he had the right to say. "A couple months ago. Messages from someone named R." I didn't read them all, but I could tell. The way she smiled at the screen. It wasn't normal. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. "I wanted to ask you," he continued, "but you were working late every night. And Mom just acted like everything was fine. So I thought, maybe it was in my head." "No," I said quietly. "It wasn't." He turned toward me, his expression somewhere between sorrow and anger. "How long?" "I don't know. A while, I think." "Are you guys getting divorced?" The way he said it, so direct, so numb, broke something in me. He wasn't angry. He wasn't surprised. He was just preparing himself for what came next, like he'd been waiting for it. "We haven't figured that out yet." He nodded slowly, then looked away. "You're sleeping in the car. Just for now." He gave a bitter laugh. "That bad, huh?" I needed space. He didn't press. And I didn't offer more. That night, I didn't sleep in the car. I slept on the floor of the office, wrapped in an old camping blanket, my laptop case as a pillow. It wasn't comfortable, but at least it was inside. Lana was still at the Harpers. Brady went to bed without a word. The house was quiet again, but this time it didn't feel peaceful. It felt like the kind of quiet right before a storm hits. The next morning, I made coffee and sat at the table staring out the back window. The kitchen still smelled like pancake syrup from a breakfast no one had eaten together. I heard Emily come downstairs, her footsteps cautious. She didn't say anything at first. Just poured her coffee and leaned against the counter. "I'm sorry," she finally said. "I know that doesn't fix anything. But I need you to know it." I looked at her. No makeup. Hair tied back. One of the old sweatshirts she used to wear around the house. For a second, she looked like the woman I remembered. But then I remembered the man's shirt. The wine. Lana's face in the doorway. "Who is he?" I asked. She paused. "His name's Ryan." "How long?" She stared into her coffee like it might give her the answer. "A few months. Maybe longer." "Does he know you're married?" She shook her head. "Not at first. I didn't tell him." "And when he found out?" "He left." I stared at her, waiting for something else. A reason. An explanation. But all she offered was silence. "I want to talk," I said finally. "But not like this. Not when the kids are in the house." She nodded, then hesitated before asking, "Do you hate me?" "I don't know what I feel yet." And that was the truth. It wasn't hate. It wasn't even heartbreak. It was something more complicated, like grief for someone who hadn't died but was still gone. Later that day, Lana came home. She didn't say anything about what she'd seen. Didn't ask about the man on the couch or why I hadn't come to bed or why her mother hadn't kissed her goodnight. Instead, she sat next to me at dinner and asked a question I wasn't ready for. Why was Mom hugging that man? I didn't answer right away. She looked at me again, eyes big and unblinking. Why wasn't she hugging us? There's no good answer for that. So I just reached out, pulled her into my side, and said the only thing I could. I don't know, sweetie. I wish I did. 2 days later, I asked Emily to sit down with me. No kids around. No distractions. Just her, me, and whatever was left between us that hadn't already slipped through our fingers. Brady had taken Lana out for ice cream. He volunteered without me asking. He was stepping into a role he shouldn't have had to, but he did it anyway, without complaint. Lana needed something that felt normal. We all did. We sat at opposite ends of the dining table like two strangers negotiating a contract. This isn't a fight, I said. I don't want it to be a fight. Emily nodded, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Her eyes were puffy, like she hadn't slept. Or maybe she'd finally started crying when no one was around. I'm not here to scream, Emily, I continued. I'm not going to throw things or guilt you. I just want answers. I think I deserve that much. She nodded again, slower this time. I took a deep breath. Was it just him? Her silence was loud. I don't mean names. Was he the first? A long pause. No, she said softly. Something inside me sank lower than I thought it could go. I wasn't surprised, but it still cut deep. For how long? Over the last year. Maybe more. How many? 2. Including Ryan. I looked away, my jaw tight. I tried not to show how much that number hurt. But she saw it. I think she'd expected me to yell. To slam the table. To fall apart. I didn't. I just kept going. Why? I asked, not as an accusation. Not even angrily. I asked it like someone asking the weather forecast. Like the answer couldn't make it worse. I don't know, she said. That's the truth. I didn't go looking for it. I didn't mean for it to start. But one day, it just happened. I shook my head. That's not how it works, Emily. Things don't just happen. They build. You make choices. She blinked, eyes filling with tears. I felt like we were roommates. Like we were running this machine together, kids, work, bills, but there was no space for me anymore. No us. Just survival. So you thought cheating would fix that? No. I thought it would make me feel something again. I didn't know what to say to that. She looked at me like she was expecting me to understand. Like I was supposed to see her pain and let it explain away everything. But I couldn't. I wouldn't. I never stopped loving you, she added quickly. That's the part one don't know how to explain. I still love you, Tyler. I lost myself. And I didn't know how to come back. I stood up then. Not in anger, just to move, to breathe. I walked over to the kitchen window, stared out at the backyard where Brady used to run around with a towel cape, pretending to be Superman. Where Lana used to chase lightning bugs barefoot until she tripped and I'd scoop her up before the tears even started. This was never perfect, I said. But it was real. At least for me. I showed up every day. I was here. Even when it was hard. Even when it was boring. She wiped at her face, her voice trembling. I know. I trusted you. I know. I defended you. When my sister said you seemed cold. When my mom asked if something was wrong. I told them you were just tired. I told them you were working too hard. I had your back. Emily buried her face in her hands. Please, Tyler. I shook my head slowly. You didn't just step out on me. You stepped out on our kids. You stepped out on all the years we spent building this life. She looked up, face streaked with tears. So what happens now? I didn't answer right away. I sat back down, leaned forward, hands folded, trying to summon the kind of calm I wasn't sure I still had. We're done, I said. But we can be done the right way. Her lip quivered. You want a divorce? I want peace. For me. For the kids. For you, if that's even still something you want. She didn't say anything. I'm not gonna drag this out, I added. We'll separate. We'll split things clean. No war. No dragging the kids into the middle. Emily looked at me like she didn't recognize who I was anymore. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she'd expected chaos, some broken man meltdown. But I was past that. Because something had shifted when I walked in that morning. I'd realized this wasn't just betrayal. It was preparation. She had made a choice long before I ever saw that wine glass or the borrowed shirt. She just never expected me to come home early. Later that day, I found something that confirmed it. I went into the home office to look for one of Lana's school forms, and while rummaging through the drawers, I found a manila folder tucked behind a stack of tax files. Inside was a lease agreement for an apartment 2 hours away. Emily's name on the top. Already signed. I found copies of the kids' birth certificates, social security cards. Not the originals, just enough to tell me she'd been preparing to take them with her, or at least have the option. I found a folded note. No envelope. Just a single sheet of notebook paper, creased like it had been opened and closed a dozen times. It was from Ryan. He said he didn't know she was married. Said he was sorry. Said he couldn't be part of something like this. His keys were inside the note, apartment keys. He had left. That's what broke her plan. We came home early. 1 month later, the world was quieter. We moved. Not far, just across town, but it felt like another country. The new place was smaller, with creaky floors and off-white walls that needed paint. The backyard was more weeds than grass, and there was no fireplace or formal dining room. But it had something the old house didn't: peace. No unfamiliar cars in the driveway. No tension like static in the air. No pretending. The kids adjusted better than I expected. Lana claimed the smallest room and decorated it with fairy lights and posters she tore out of magazines. She made it hers in a day. Brady didn't say much about the move. He just started taking the trash out without being asked, started asking if I needed help fixing the leaky faucet in the kitchen. It wasn't that he was fine. He just knew we had to keep moving. Emily called. A lot at first. Texted to. Apologies, mostly. Some long, some just one word, sorry. A voicemail where she cried and begged to talk. Another where she sounded calm and cold, asking for shared custody, to keep things civil. Then silence. Lana didn't want to talk to her. She didn't cry about it. She just turned away when Emily's name showed up on the phone screen. Kids don't always know how to explain what they're feeling, but they feel everything. And Lana? She'd seen too much. The hug. The wine. The silence after. It changed something in her. Not all at once, not in a dramatic movie kind of way. But in the little ways. More time alone in her room, fewer drawings on the fridge, a hesitation in her smile. It was subtle, but it was there. Brady, on the other hand, stopped pretending. He didn't talk about Emily, didn't ask to visit, didn't mention her name unless he had to. He hadn't blocked her number, but he let the messages pile up unread. I never asked why. I didn't need to. Some nights, after Lana went to bed and Brady disappeared behind headphones and homework, I sat on the porch with a beer and just breathed. No music. No noise. Just air. It didn't feel like victory. There's this idea people have, that when you leave a toxic situation or someone betrays you, there's this satisfying, triumphant moment where you stand tall and feel powerful. But that's not what it is. Not really. It's quieter. Heavier. You feel hollow, like someone removed a part of you without warning. You feel tired in a way sleep can't fix. And in your worst moments, you wonder if maybe it was your fault. If you didn't do enough. If you could have changed the outcome. But those thoughts fade, eventually. Slowly. Like bruises turning from purple to yellow. Still there, but no longer sharp. One night, Lana fell asleep on the couch watching a nature documentary, her head resting on my lap, her mouth slightly open in that way kids always do when they're too exhausted to make it to their beds. I muted the TV and just sat there, brushing her hair back, thinking about how much had changed in so little time. I wasn't the same man I was before that trip. I'd lost something I thought was permanent. I'd watched the life I built crumble in my hands. But I'd also learned something. I could survive it. Not with revenge. Not with shouting or burning it all down. But with steadiness. With presence. With doing the right thing even when no one's watching. A few days later, I got a text from Emily. Can I come by? Just to talk. Please. I stared at it for a long time. Not out of temptation. Not out of hope. Just consideration. I wrote back, not now. I didn't say never. But I didn't owe her anything more than that. And that was enough. The past didn't need to be erased. It just didn't get to define us anymore. One morning, Lana asked if she could ride her bike to the library by herself. I hesitated for a second, instinct kicking in, but then I said yes. She beamed, grabbed her helmet, and took off down the driveway like she'd been waiting her whole life for that little sliver of freedom. And for the first time in a long time, I smiled without hesitation. It wasn't the life I'd planned. But maybe, just maybe, it was the life I was meant to rebuild. One honest piece at a time.